So I'm really excited to welcome Chen, Anaïs, Rajiv, and Monica today for Poetry number 7. First up, we're going to have Chen. Chen Chen is the author of When I Grow Up, I Want to Be a List of Further Possibilities, which won the A. Poulin Jr. Poetry Prize and was longlisted for a 2017 National Book Award for Poetry. He's received fellowships from Kundiman, Lambda Literary, and the Saltonstall Foundation, and is currently pursuing a PhD at Texas Tech. With the poet Sam Herschel-Wein, he edits the poetry journal Underblong. You can also read a conversation with Chen with one of our Margins Fellows, Yanyi, that's going up next week. And I actually just wanted to read a little bit from Yanyi's introduction. So he writes, Chen Chen's poems have a sense of exaltation and vulnerability to them. Poems with an air of Frank O'Hara that move in and around mental illness and loneliness. Poems that stand together brothers and mangoes as much as queerness and Chineseness. Poems that quiz us on knowing more than one book by Maxine Hong Kingston. Chen's speaker writes gently but steadily towards relating, towards making families, and towards making further possibilities of families. Please welcome Chen.
So I'm working through this cold right now, so I'll just put these tissues over here in case I need them. Thank you so much for having me, for all of you for being here. This is my first time in this space, actually. It feels really special to be reading with these poets. So I'll start with a newer poem, and I was thinking, actually when I'm staying with Carly Joy Miller, and we were walking over here, and I don't know if you noticed, Carly, but a couple steps ahead of us, there was this young gay couple, and they're holding hands, and it's like in this big like shopping area, and you know that thing that happens when you just feel like your face smiling, and so that happened because it's not something that I see very often where I'm living now in West Texas, that very open affection. So this is a poem called The School of Night and Hyphens. The sky tonight, so without aliens. The woods, very lacking in witches. But the people, as usual, replete with people. And so you, with your headset, sit in the home office across the hall, stuck in a hell of strangers crying, computers dying, the new fathers dropped in toilet baby photos, the old Canadian, her grandson Gregory, all grown up now Greg, who gave her this phone but won't call her. You call her wonderful. You encourage her to tell you what's wrong with her device. You with your good at your job, good-lookingness. I bet even over the phone, it's visible. I bet all the Canadian grandmas want you. But hey, you're with me. Hey, take off that headset. Steal away from your post. Cross the hall. You who sings the chorus too soon. You makes a killer veggie taco. You played tennis in college, build. You, Jeffrey, you, Jeff, ship full of stars, cauldron full of you. Come teach me a little bit of nothing in the dark, abundant hours. So I'll read a bit from my book. I'll read this poem that was first published in The Margins. Chapter 8. Autumn was an argument about hair and how much of it. Too much, not enough, just right, but just for now, and then it was winter. The licorice of every season was rather inappropriate. Well, okay, how about this? And you put on more of my deodorant. What can one do but put on more deodorant? Paris, lopsided, was still Paris. a congregation, a conflagration, a smiling conundrum in the form of a ladder it takes years to climb down. In our last ever Scrabble game, you changed my whore into horde. I tried to ask my parents to leave the room, but not my life. It was very hard because the room was the size of my life, because my life was small and wanted to eat candy corn instead of confrontation. Raising one's voice in a small space felt at once godlike and childish. You agreed with me out of a practical concern, and I loved you for it. We were two horses in search of the least abandoned constellation. But the night sky was overtaken by the beatitude of the ultimate horse. Also, Ben had upset Wes with his choice of neckties, but then the author decided it would all be better in second person, actually. When did I first realize my parents were not infinite, that I could see the end of them, past their capes and catchphrases? One day in fourth grade, my teacher said, "You're lucky to be so young. You'll heal up from that bicycle accident in no time. No scars. No time, no scars. Sing it with me. Loud as Reykjavik summer. Easy as my etch-a-sketch when I made a mistake. I will try my best not to mistake you for my parents. I mean my problems with my parents. I mean me. Believe with me another melody. That the room, the life could go by a different light, and we could say hello, meaning gentleness with all our might." Night falls like a button from your grandmother's coat. You worry with your thumb the stranger's page, aging spine of the black sky, night burps of the sleeping computer. Don't listen to the judgment of your scraped knees. Night anchors in your belly button, your pubic hair. Stars snore safely for years. Your smile in the early dark is a paraphrase of Mars. Your smile in the deep dark is an anagram of Jupiter. My worst simile is that I'm fancy like a piece of salami wearing a tuxedo, waiting with a cone of gelato. Your smile in the dreaming dark is an umbrella for all the going, gone, and yet to come. Orioles come for the oranges you've placed in the arms of the architect. Which birds will you pull into orbit tomorrow? You try to sew the night onto your own coat, but it won't stay. Too much memory weather, werewolf migration. You itch for the window's shore. You row the growing light, rearranging your voice. The rain, your lunatic photographer. So I think I'll just read one more from this book and close with another new poem. And this one is for Monica Soak. I don't think she's here yet, but she knows this poem. In the city. These bridges are a feat of engineering. These pork and chive dumplings we bought together before hopping on a train and crossing bridges are a feat of engineering. Talking to you, crossing bridges and trains, eating pork and chive dumplings in your bright boxcar of a kitchen in Brooklyn is an engineer's dream feat of astonishment. Tonight I cannot believe the skyline because the skyline believes in me. Forgives me my drooling astonishment over it and over the fact that this happens this night, every night, its belief glittering, mad, and megawatt like the dreams of parents. By the way, is this soy sauce reduced sodium? Do you know? Do we care? High, unabashed sodium intake. Unabashed exclamation points. New York is an exclamation I take, making my escape away from the quiet, snowy commas of upstate and the mess of questions marking my Bostonian past. In New York, we read Darwish. We write broken sonnets, finally forgiving the broken English of our mothers. We eat pork and chive dumplings, and I know it's such a 90s fantasy of multiculturalism that I'm rehashing. But still, in New York, I feel I can tell you how my mother and I used to make dumplings together, like a scene out of the Joy Luck Club. The small kitchen, the small bowl of water between us. How we dipped index finger, thumb, sealed each dumpling like tucking in a secret goodnight. The meat of a memory, a feat of engineering, a dream of mother and son, interrupted by the father, my father, who made my mother get on a plane, a theory, years of nowhere across American nose, a degree that proved useless, proved he was the father. I try to build a bridge to my parents, but only reach my mother. It's a bridge she's about to jump off of. I run to her, she jumps, she's swimming, saying, finally I've learned, all this time, trying to get from one useless chunk of land to another when I should have stayed in the water. And we're drinking tap water near bright Brooklyn kitchen. I don't know what to tell you. I thought I could tell this story, give it away out of itself. Even here, in my fabulous Tony-winning monologue of a New York, I'm struggling to get to the joy, the luck. I tell you my mother still boils the water, though she knows she doesn't have to anymore. Her special kettle boils in no time, is a feat of engineering. She could boil my father in it, and he'd come out a better person, in beautiful shoes. She could boil the Atlantic, the Pacific, every idyllic American pond with its swans. She would. So I'll close with this also new-ish poem. If I can find it. Yeah, I found it. Okay. This is called 1 Year Later, a Letter. It's in memory of Christopher Andrew Drew Lenonen, 32, murdered with his boyfriend Juan Ramon Guerrero, 22, in the shooting at Pulse gay nightclub in Orlando, June 12, 2016. Many of the 49 victims, like Guerrero, were gay and Latinx. Lenonen, one of the last to be identified, was gay and Asian American. In this poem, I address Lenonen as Drew because that was the name he chose for himself at 18, moving to Orlando for school and community. Dear Drew, it's 1 year later. I search your name again and find a new picture of your mother, holding up the bright shirt you died in. Looking at the holes, those 9 shots, waiting for one more gleam of you to push through. True, I didn't know you, but keep reading, rereading about you. You who shepherded friends and dates, and maybe I'm not 100% straights, to their first gay club. You who danced, who shenaniganed. You who all caps shouted gay, like yes, whenever someone tried to lowercase snicker, are you? You who worked as a counselor, who called your red pickup truck the Flamer, who donned a floppy Santa hat for the cheesiest, gayest holiday picture with your boyfriend and mother, you who were dancing with your boyfriend Juan, then not, you who I keep reading about until I keep seeing my face, my brother's faces, in yours, you who gleamed. Drew, sometimes I dream you into earlier that night to the place you shared with Juan. You're getting ready while he eats a snack in the kitchen. You're trying on a blue shirt, thinking maybe not. Then Juan comes in to tease you for taking so long. His hand on your shoulder, your hand, his beardy cheek. Then Juan saying yes, this shirt, before the two of you step out. Drew, each time I dream it, I slow it down a little more. You try on 5 shirts, each with different shoes, and Juan eats a very large bowl of Frosted Flakes. Then another touch of his cheek. But Drew, I don't know if you showed your tenderness this way. And sometimes there's another part of me, a not small part, that keeps returning to your mother instead of you. The way she holds your shirt with the largest missing, because I wonder, would my mother do that for me? My mother who once said she wishes she never had me. My mother who still can't say your boyfriend. But knowing my mother, I can say she would, even on the news, for everyone to see, because a not small part of her would rather miss me than listen to me say again, I love him. Drew, what did you say to the unlistening, to the heart that prefers a shineless shirt? All I know, Drew, is that I've searched, but no word could be radiant, restless enough to grieve you. You who could have been a friend, you who must have been my brother. Thank you.
Thank you, Chen. Next up, we have Anaïs. Anaïs Duplan is the author of the poetry collection This Stallion and the chapbook Mount Carmel and the Blood of Parnassus, which we have for sale in the back and includes a really incredible essay on Dean Blunt that everyone should go and read. Their poems and essays have appeared in Hyperallergic, on PBS News Hour, Poetry Society of America, the Boston Review. They're also an artist and curator, and the founder of the Center for Afrofuturist Studies, which is a program for artists of color in Iowa City. And they are the Public Programs Fellow at the Museum of Modern Art and the Studio Museum in Harlem. Writing about This Stallion, Francine J. Harris wrote, Anaïs Duplan's poems are talkative, inappropriate, obsessive, and sexy. They put everything on the table, and if there's no table, they erect one. And though this collection might be haunted by a voice that says, don't be too cocky, on nearly every page it talks back. Heroic, inspired, and smart, these poems are on their own 2 feet, saying, I'm always cocky. Please welcome Anaïs.
It's kind of nice. Hi, good to see all of you tonight. For the most part, I think tonight I'll read from Mount Carmel, but I wanted to start with this poem. I've been thinking about visual art a lot lately, because I just started this fellowship at the Studio Museum and also MoMA. And so thinking about the ways that poetry and visual art interact. There's this poet named Robert Colescott, and he has a painting called George Washington Carver Crossing the Delaware. And it's a boat full of black people who are crossing the Delaware, and one of the people on the boat, they're soldiers, and one of the people is like smiling and like hugging an American flag, and he looks really happy. But it's also, I don't know, I always read that figure as also kind of like a fuck you to patriotism, but then also like a real heartfelt sort of like embrace. So this poem is called Ode to the Happy Negro Hugging the Flag in Robert Colescott's George Washington Carver Crossing the Delaware. I have waited all my life to find me, find you, perched around my black neck in repose, songing of me in repose, your black legs, songing of me in repose. Your black legs a dangle around me, I have waited to find you, find your black toes, to find them sundering at the base, your black toes, your black toenails hale and bright, your black feet a straddle around me. Around my black waist, a straddle I, finding I was born, who operated in the white, was born, who operated in the white chapel, who found your black thighs in repose, songing to each other in repose across my chest, an extended black for blocks, a neighborhood song in repose, your crotch an extended black at my neck, my black groin a straddle around me in repose. What life, what there it is there I had been looked at, there, O Lord, sucked his black thorax, which spanned as a fracture, spanned as I, who grow up in you there as a fracture find, your black breast, O Lord, quiescing, atop my head, your other black breast, O Lord, hale and bright around me, O Lord, a pendulum, O Lord, to my black ear that finds you songing of me in repose in your stature. toppling to one side of my one side, find your black shoulders a gaping around me. Death, your body armless around me. Death, none can skirt it in your mother's way. Oh Lord, is finding black fingers there. Your black neck is finding. Lord, is rising past the cumulus line. An extended black, oh Lord, is an extended black. Oh Lord, is thinking of self, and thinking of self is finding you there. So that when I entered the pulpit, I entered. Let us enter this again. In the context of this paragraph, we are hurling backward through space toward a small opening. I press my hand to your lip and you bite my spine. A childhood proceeds from a series of images, an apartment where the children don't speak English, my body included. I step in dog shit. I fall in love with a blonde boy whose mother walks him to the bus stop where my mother also drops me. I fall hard and don't stop falling. I tell Benjamin I love him, but he is married and employed and doesn't need the money and is my therapist. True story. This is a silly way to say, I love you, I cannot lie to you, I would like to. I wanted you to cry with me. Whenever I cry, you cry. Once you cried and I wanted you to stop, I wanted you to cry into me. You waste everyone's time with your back and forth. You go to the shopping mall of your delights and horrors, purchasing yourself in droves. You run out of money and are filthy though you bathe. You bathe for this reason countless times. It has nothing to do with the font that you're using. Some say work for honesty, others say craft. Still others are monarchs or blue whales. Others have stars on their shoulders. Others invite each other to dances where they, as per each other's expectation, dance with each other. You collect everything, all the dead waste of his life, and create a wreath. I am always too moody for the party. I talked to Ryan about this, and we can talk about this endlessly. That is because Ryan is a good man with a good sense of the sentence. I told Ryan at the barbecue, and so on, and that's how it is, I said. You've always got to keep on going until you're dead. And when you die, some folks will give a hoot, and some others will give great hoots. Still others will fall somewhere in the middle. Where does something fall when it falls in the middle? It falls all around us at night in strides. I had a feeling in the fingers the other day. They weren't my fingers. I told Dr. Adelson about it. I told him for the second or even the third time. I felt so dejected. I fell into a hole. At the bottom of the hole, my mother was there. She was peeling carrots. She was married to Rebecca, who had given her many great children. Don't fix a thing, darling. You're already shining like window cleaner. No one's watching. You're never gonna read this bitch ever again. Ho, what? Ha, 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 ha. Chester wags his tail every time I laugh. Chester's my doggy. True story. All I needed was some time alone. You want a poem? Here I've got one. It's an Ars Poetica. A poem should be righteous, good, and true. Like my body, this is a thinly veiled disguise. I am limited by what my hand can do. I feel so stupid. I thought I had to hide. You're a shit show, freak, baby, white face, nobody. Everything you say about me is bullshit. Blah, 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 the story is you are black. Blah, 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 you have white hair like Brian, who improperly describes sex to you. The story goes, 3 men in the desert refer themselves to Christ. Chester has a ball in his mouth. All figures like this one refer themselves to Christ. Hunger is the bane of my existence. You are my best friend, somewhat. I'm not sure I'd like to finish what I've started. I'm not concerned at all with the poem now, you have to understand. There is nothing wrong with this, please. I ate half a papaya. I can't stop thinking about bluettes and how if this becomes a chapbook, will people compare this to that? This is nothing like that. I haven't even thought about formatting yet. No one will read this book and almost everyone will prefer bluettes. What do you want? A fucking postcard? I'm just trying to think out loud. Seems like that's what everyone else is doing. Something else I have to say, you will alienate everyone you love systematically as a practice. This is a poem about my parents. They all met in Port-au-Prince. Actually, I'm not sure that's true, but anywhere there they are in the nation's capital. It's 1991. I don't know how much of this I should say. I don't want to tear my family apart. I'm assuming you, the reader, are complicit in this. Here goes. Someone couldn't have a baby with someone else after someone got something from someone else. So someone went to someone else, a third someone, and got something, a fourth. Yeah? Do artists work all day? Actually, looking for some answers. Thoughts? What's the yay crew? Can we get like, artists do work all day? Artists don't work all day. What about the no crew? That's good. That's good that like at the Asian American Writers Workshop, nobody's like, artists don't work all day. Do artists work all day? Yes, the answer is yes. Without a doubt, ma frère, the artist fixates on his craft. She has no craft. She is in the kitchen making biscuits for daddy. Hopefully you are not terrible enough to publish a book boasting of your parents' faults. You are young. You are 24 on the day of writing this. You are wearing a blue shirt, blue skirt, white underwear, no shoes. If you regret this in 25 years, let me know. Keep this page as a record. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Anaïs. So now we have Rajiv. Rajiv is the author of The Taxidermist's Cut, which was a finalist for the Lambda Literary Award for Gay Poetry this year, and also the author of The Cowherd's Son, which unites myth, folktale, and multilingual translations to create a sort of allegorical chronicle of dislocations and relocations, linking India, Guyana, Trinidad, New York, Orlando, Toronto, and Honolulu. Publishers Weekly writes, Mohabir's candid work is steep in the realities of being a mixed-caste queer Guyanese American. His speaker sings these lived experiences into verse. He's currently an assistant professor of poetry at Auburn University, and Rajiv has been awarded a 2015 AAWP Intro Journal Award, the Kundiman Prize, and a Penheim Translation Fund grant. Please welcome Rajiv.
So easy. Like I don't have to unscrew anything and like, that's fabulous. So thanks everyone for being here. Thanks for reading your stunning work. And I'm so honored to be here. And I'm gonna read some poems from my book and then some new poems. The first thing that I wanna say is like, what is it about myth, right? What is it about these like wonderful, super powerful people that we are supposed to try to be like, whether it's Jesus Christ, or Hanuman, right, the monkey god who tries to eat the mango. And then what about Ardhanarishwar, who is like, half goddess, half god? Are we supposed to emulate these people, especially when we are attacked in Union Square? So I write about these kind of things in this poem called Body of Myths. In a night cell, You are half man, half woman. My father chases us into the wood, crying out for blood, sickle-handed. The forest's roots flailing their limbs like asps. I give you my name. Can your papa count my fingers as kin forever and ever? Don't melt his ears, Lord Shiv. It's my goat head, a goat head hungry for fig leaves. Shame, 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 I know. In Union Square, a kiss betrays. Not to a crust of thorns, but to a hail of fists. Anywhere I chase the mango sun to jaw it whole is crowned in blood with no chance for resurrection. Relief. But now drought. My body is a starving night. I've tried every incantation's glide, every folk remedy, thrown ash of torn clothes from the cliff to salt clouds. I have no herb left to burn, no scorpions to jewel a curse, no rattlesnake to drape from my neck. Far off, you hurricane, a mountain emeralds, a drowned doe bloats. I bite my lip and mouth your name. A vulture whirls for my throat in a violet bloom. You, the omen of flash flood. First, rapture, then raptors. So, 2017 is a magical year for my community. It's been 100 years since Indian indenture was abolished. And so when I think about people that I'm from, there are these old ways of keeping our stories and who our people are. And it was an old custom that the women of our family would tattoo the names of like their husbands on their arms. So when my grandmother died, as an homage to her, in which, as a 25-year-old, didn't really think this through completely, I tattooed the names of people as far back as, our family can tell. And so that's 6 generations, counting my brother's children. But these are the names of all the men that I descend from. We don't know the names of the women, all of the women that we come from. And so I imagine this as a letter that kind of talks about a female ancestor of mine that I call Sita, after the goddess Lakshmi, who incarnates into the world as the wife of a real quote-unquote virtuous man who in the end is an asshole. Actually, not in the end, but all throughout the story is kind of a jerk to people. But it's an interesting metaphor for indenture in that there's a story of exile where Ram and Sita are sent to the forest, and a lot of people in the Caribbean use this as kind of like a metaphor for understanding our communities outside of India. Sita. Sita signed her sentence with a thumbprint. That morning she filled a clay lamp with mustard oil to keep burning until she came back. The Arkotia, recruiter for the East India Company, dressed as a wandering ascetic. He begged at her door. He hypnotized her with coins in the shape of a deer. He bared his 10 demon heads, demanding her memory. Sita's eyes glowed gold. Held at the Kolkata shipping dock, the first sea she would know, Sita sat on a chariot bound for the city of gold. Her jungly children were yet to run through the Amazon barefoot. Cutlass mangled eye and limb, chopped India out of coolie, a new word for her labor. She cried for the deer that betrayed her. Her Skeldon calluses hardened into a Guyana map. Every night, Sita's dream flickered. She saw herself changed by the black seas. Every night, Sita dreamed of an India that didn't want her back. The golden stag glinted, fleeing deeper into the forest. So Sir Walter Raleigh in 1598, when he was like a pirate, rapist, murderer, when he found Guyana, many people were living there. But this is the legendary city of gold. This is El Dorado. This next poem is called Holi, dedicated to Rabindra Deb, who couldn't make it tonight. He was supposed to be here, but I'll read it anyway. Coward, can you warm your hands so far from the holika in flames? Come closer and trace the subway and ship lines in these palms. You gather embers in your dustpan to light your own fire and dream the return of some god who will pull you from this coolie history unscathed, who will tear out the slaver king's intestines and garland his neck in pink entrails. Somewhere outside a Ram temple, someone smashes a mirror and places the shards in her mouth. Cowherd, can you pray, your tongue so cleft? Or do you eat the coals to cauterize the mantras, flapping wild as cicadas in your hollow? Look around at beauty cloaked in orange. Everything you love will one day burn. How many of you have put henna on your hands before? Have you done mehendi? Yeah, you know how you have to leave it on for a really long time. Sometimes you'll put lemon and sugar on it, coffee. So the thing is when you sleep with it overnight, which I do, it kind of turns into this hard mud and it kind of peels off. And it's kind of gross, your bed's really gross, unless you tie your hand with plastic bags, which I am not very good at because I like to masturbate. But this poem is called Change, for a man that I used to know. The henna leaf betrays its red to brown. Dried, how can it say to its lost blush, flushed with wine, your lips are home, as it scuffs its edges along the cement, dragged by the cords of seasons. There's no going back. Every word is a hole in the universe where it should have been said. An echo or stillness filled by artists and stargazers with Ecclesiastes. How can I tell you now you are my home? The wildfire crown of oaks, or the tide of flame licking my veins. So the last poem that I'll read from this book before I move on to two more is called Orbit of Exterior Wildfires. When I come to think about this title, it was kind of more of a prompt. I wrote it in a workshop, and the person had us cut out interesting words in a magazine and kind of put it all together. And I did, and I liked it. But I think the wildfires that I read about are more internal than external. Or maybe as within, so without, this? So maybe that's what I mean by external. And it starts with a Doha couplet from Kabir Das, who in the 1500s, kind of expounded on this spirituality that blended a lot of South Asian spiritual traditions. And I'll read his original couplet in translation before I begin. आग जो लगी समंद में धुआं न प्रगट होए सो जाने जो जर मुआ जाकी लगी होए. The ocean of flame, the smoke is invisible. Those who go close know its burn. When I open my eyes to red, my skin wants your finger, sometimes four. Sometimes to burn in the gravity of our collision, where I swallow white light and am silhouette, our mess dust and offshoots of moon. Insatiable, I dream flames. I dream erasure's rapture. I've spent the lion month gathering kindling for this obia fetish, this charm of bundled deer tongue, Damiana, hoping some fever will leap again from you, a golden stag. I sing to you a cremation lullaby. Skulls crack into script where fire ravages. The spell scarred into a bowl of bone, a tongue of closure. So there's so many different kinds of betrayal that we could face in this world. One of the betrayals is like, you can cheat on someone and that's a terrible betrayal sexually. You could also betray your parents by writing poems about them and telling their secrets, right? And that's a very special kind of betrayal that this poem is. It's called Nima Karim, which is in Bhojpuri, it means, Nimak means salt, and haram means the thing that's illegal or you're not supposed to do. So if somebody gives you salt, you are like indebted to them. Like, one of the things you say is like, oh, but I've given you salt. Like, how can you do this thing to me? It's kind of like a Judas Iscariot betrayal, I guess. And this is called Nima Karam. My tender love, my father, feet still warm from circling the sacred fire, poured burnt engine oil into a gopher tortoise's hole. The earth drank black. He planted an orange tree meters away. Its fruit was night, so he drowned it in blue crystals meant to fertilize, but its leaves browned. Instead of blessing it, he cursed the sun his body made. May you never bear fruit. May you be thrown out, trampled by men. I am all salt and saltless. What can oil-soaked earth bear? God the Father sang me a lullaby. Nima Karam, I've given you the kingdom. You've given me a snake. My tender love, give me the dove of your chest, and I will crush it in my fist. I'm not that much of an asshole. Maybe I am. This last poem that I'm going to read is called Why Whales Are Back in New York City. Like, have you guys been following this? Have you folks been following this? It's so, like, radically beautiful that humpback whales are coming back to the city. Like, you can see them in Queens. When I left New York in 2013, I went to Hawaii, and I wrote a dissertation about humpback whale song. And I could have just done that in Queens, and I love Queens so much. But then also, like, all this, like, crazy political stuff is happening. All this, like, horrible political stuff. I mean, especially, like, immigration, and then this tax bill. ICE terrorizing communities, like, especially, like, my community on Liberty Avenue, in the end of the A train. I talk about this place all the time. Just so sad. But there are these, like, beautiful moments of resistance, right? Like, pulling down statues that, like, commemorate famous racists. Like, that's something that living in the South has been kind of now really exciting to see, these moments of resistance. This poem was written, what else do I need to tell you about this? Oh yeah, in kind of a response to this poet who, addressing, a pretty established poet, addressing, like, a group of black and brown students in New York City, saying something like, oh, don't write about the news, don't write about anything topical, rather write about things that are enduring, everlasting. And like, that must be really nice to have that privilege, to, like, not be paying attention to news nowadays. So, this is my fuck you. Why whales are back in New York City. After a century, humpbacks migrate again to Queens. They left due to sewage and white froth, banking the shores from polychlorinated biphenyl dumping into the Hudson, and winnowing Manhattan schools. But now grace. Dark bodies of song return. Go to re-speech. Hold your breath. Submerge. a black fluke silhouetted against the Manhattan skyline. Now, ICE beats doors down on Liberty Avenue to deport. I sit alone on orange A-train seats, mouth sparkling from sings. No matter how white supremacy gathers at the sidewalks, flows down the streets, we still beat our drums wild. Watch their false god statues prostrate to black and brown hands. They won't keep us out, though they send us back. Our songs will pierce the fathoms. Behold the miracle. What was once lost now leaps before you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajiv. Our final reader today is Monica. Monica Suk is the daughter of Cambodian refugees and the granddaughter of M. Bun, a master weaver and a recipient of a National Heritage Fellowship. As of this year, like her grandmother, Monica is now also an NEA recipient. Her chapbook, Year Zero, was selected by Marilyn Chin for a Poetry Society of America 30 and Below Chapbook Fellowship, and she's currently the 2016-2018 Stadler Fellow at Bucknell University, where she's working on her first collection of poetry. Her work has appeared in the Kenyon Review, the New Republic, VQR, and she holds an MFA in creative writing from NYU. And actually, in an interview with Chen for the Iron Horse Review, she was asked what keeps her writing, and her response was, "The desire to break open the many silences in my life." Please welcome Monica.
Hi, everyone. Oh my goodness, thank you so much for being here. I see Shani, how are you doing? How was your cruise? She's at this Girl Scouts thing. So thank you, everyone who helped me get here, which I think is everybody in this room in some capacity. Especially, I came in late, so I'm very sorry, but I'm so honored to hold space with the readers tonight, or this afternoon, and to just be here with you. I love Asian American Writers Workshop. I'm just gonna go ahead and read some poems, and I'll try to talk in between. Ask the locals. Nobody knows how those so-called revolutionaries, whose so-called one is so-called Year Zero so bad, turned into mosquitoes. I mean, mosquitoes, right? Because not butterflies or moths rolling in the mass graves. We all know the moths are children who didn't make it past 5. My theory is those creeps suck the blood of their victims to forget, with their bare hands or with other kinds of hands, the kinds with teeth. They forgot. Don't forget. If you scratch your arms like that, a huge welt will appear, a rash, and those mosquitoes will keep coming. You heard it from me. Don't scratch the real names. Toothpaste over that bump won't soothe you. Not this one. I'll tell you something personal. Every time I hear their real names, I itch my skin. I itch my own name too. Mosquitoes. Call them mosquitoes. This kind keeps going like that mosquito straw in your calf keeps sucking. This is when I tell you, don't bend, slap. So I write about the Khmer Rouge regime, or more commonly known as the Killing Fields, between 1975 to 79, which is a terrible genocidal regime that wiped out about 1.7 to 2 million people in Cambodia. And my family, my parents, lived through that. And a lot of my relatives, of course, did not make it. So I wrote this poem, Ask the Locals, talking about these mosquitoes, right? I just found that I had such a hard time writing about the Khmer Rouge or giving them so much space in my bio, my writing, my statement, anything. I didn't want them to take so much space. And so I wanted to call them mosquitoes as a way to kind of do some myth making, but also to distance myself so I could engage with that history, which is so necessary for me to engage with. The next poem is, the title of the next poem is literally a quote from Henry Kissinger to General Alexander Haig. And the quote is this, and then I'll read the poem. He wants a massive bombing campaign in Cambodia. He, President Nixon, doesn't want to hear anything. It's an order. It's to be done. Anything that flies on anything that moves. You got that? Celebration of a new year in April. Rice, water. Small bubbles blown toward the sky, hoping to turn US bombs into jasmines. Nearly all the Cham people in the country. The flute players, wooden flute. Noses, chipped off faces of asuras lining the path to Angkor Wat. Sin Sisamu's voice. Music. Sleep. Dit Pran, the physician, died of pancreatic cancer. An 80-poem manuscript written by Yu Sum-ul at Iowa's Writers' Workshop from 1966 to 68. Before fleeing Phnom Penh, he buried it, feigned illiteracy. A mother's golden lotus bud around her daughter's neck. Temples, monks, the spot-billed duck laying eggs at the edge of the forest. King Norodom Sihanouk, Chao Ponhia yet high school. The sisters who tied their hands together as they slept. Apsaras last seen bathing in the river, their sarongs float down to Tonle Sap. Brown wood owl, eastern great egrets, giant ibises. News coverage on the evacuation of Phnom Penh on the front page of Le Monde in 1975. Princess Bopa Devi. Books, evacuees. Yol Alorong's cheerful Siklo song. Bang Sota's father who told the truth. The old woman who lives in the octopus tree, her long silver hair. The last historians, rocks that break open as oranges and jake. 7 heads of the Naga snake. Children taken for long walks told they were going to see their parents. American dollars, jewelry, and potatoes hidden in a hole dug near the huts. Hang Esnor, actor in The Killing Fields, found in downtown LA. Instead of a tribunal, a house arrest. 2 million people, including aunt's twin sister, uncle, baby cousin Kasal, 3 grandparents, the water in my heart, my birthday. So the United States bombing of Ho Chi Minh Trail into Cambodia was a direct influence on the Khmer Rouge's power. And I mean, that entire period is just really fucked up. So I don't know if we should really, I mean, we can talk about it, but let me just say that we can talk about it, but we also need to empower certain narratives a lot, because when we talk about the Vietnam War or the American War or whatever, that war that happened in Vietnam, it involved a secret war in Laos. You know, it involved U.S. troops in Cambodia. Just that entire region was affected at the time. A lot of Hmong folks as well. Like, you know, I just see like the Hmong American Writers Circle, Hawk, that Miter Vang and like Sol Vang and Burley Vang and everyone else, like they started out there in Fresno, I think. And I just look at them and I just, you know, that solidarity right there. So we have to empower each other's narratives because we all inherit the war. So I was in Cambodia last November around this time, and it was like kind of a mindfuck because like it was weird. I was without my family. I was by myself. I was in Siem Reap, which was very targeted towards like it's like very geared toward tourism, right? So Westerners, and I found myself being the only Khmer girl in the temples visiting, and I found myself like it was just me and then the tour guides who were Khmer people. So I thought that was weird, and I found myself at lots of different intersections of my own identity as an American and as a Cambodian. So here's a poem about that. Self-portrait in Siem Reap. The French chef says, "Try the foie gras, it's very good." So I treat myself to the liver of a force-fed goose. Give it to me on a crostini with black currant. In America, I don't get to do this sort of rich people thing. The waiter tells me I was a translator for Angelina Jolie. Saw her roll up her skirt and walk into a river. Oh my gosh, I thought she didn't have to do that. Cars zoom across from me. Motorbikes too. Kicked up dust greets me and my food in my face. The family next door having dinner at their shop. They wonder at me sitting so fancy at a restaurant patio, alone, if I'll be okay. Am I enjoying my foreign food across the bar where locals play pool? Actually, they want to know if I'm Khmer or not. My table cloaked in white, fine dining in Siem Reap. Look at me, get up, when the waiter comes out with water. I'm heading for the bathroom past the chef. Are you okay? Vomiting on my shoes before I reach the toilet. The steak is rare. Was it the pollution? Will you write a good review? It was the foie gras, Pierre. Shut up. I'd rather help an orphan girl carrying her sister. At least she'd lie to me on Pub Street saying, I don't want money. I don't want money. I want powdered milk. How much time do I have? I'm okay on time. Maybe 3 more poems. And thank you again for having me here, for being here this afternoon. I want to read some poems that are kind of new and yeah. So let me do this new poem called The Book of Spung. I'll just read an excerpt. I was at the Conversation Literary Festival in the South recently, and so I read this for the first time, and I just want to thank those in the audience who were there with me for giving me the courage to do this again. So in Taprom Temple, there are all these spung trees, which tour guides call the octopus trees. And so Spung is a character in my book of poems. My story begins in water, dark as the ink I store deep inside my brain, the blackest ink with which I wrote myself out of the darkness. But why, you ask? Always someone must ask. Does my ink dry and not cloud? Because my tentacles, when I was born, ripped open the soft walls my mother made with the dream of leaves blowing in a storm. I crawled out of my egg and took my first breath, each tentacle with its own thoughts, very much like rain. Each moved freely as they wished, and one kept reaching for the shore until all joined in. Land. Like roots, they scaled the temple roof all the way down, digging into ancient broken tiles. I have always wanted to be a tree. Now I am old. I am a tree. Branches full of leaves I hold up to block the sun. Who would have thought an octopus like me could provide the sweetest umbrage by way of camouflage? Should I say this again in cephalopod so you might understand? Written inside a sucker, the only word I know, my name, Spung. Do not blame my dead mother whom I ate. You cannot fathom the terrors I've seen in order to be this close to the sky. So the next part of that. This close. I was this close to the sky. Sremol, you cannot fathom all I could see. Terrible, terrible from that treetop. Logye, the weaver, said to me once, her mouth chewing, or at least I imagined it. I'd yawn and rub my eyes at the clock. She spit into a plastic-lined jar she kept under her bed, next to the wooden back scratcher that I used as my cane or my wand. And maybe, when the lights went out, she'd whisper, Spung, it's a shame. I didn't understand her. Distinct feelings, unnameable and numerous, gathered on her wrinkled forehead. Her hair short, gleamed silver. Night she did not have the words. I wonder if she used to kneel in the backyard, rubbing her head against the earth, if her strands connected to the grass, if my mother ran outside to uproot her, or if she did the same. And wait, will I do this too? It's a shame that I was born in this country long after the war, where all wars are from. Logye passing through the hallway, one hand pressed to the wall, struggling. I live in another world too, traveling separately alongside hers. And when she died, no one could carry on her weaving or tell me how to thread the loom with one strand of my hair. And so that keeps going. And thank you for listening to that new poem, but it's not done yet. I'm going to read one last poem, and I thank you again. My father, refugee, taught me how to read English. That was his second language. So this poem is about that. ABC for refugees. Cherubi D, how does a man who doesn't read English well know that cherubi dum, those aren't really words, BD, but birds? Cherubi dum, he stumbles, reading to me by the sliding glass door, cherubi D, through which I watch my brother play in the dum-dum yard. Cherubby dum, like how my father says, fine then, leave, my mother shouts, stupid, dumb. We live in a small BD nest too, one hallway, to be dumb slam doors. Birds? What are birds? Thanks to my father reading with me, I have more feathers. THE, first word he ever taught me to pluck. It is a word used all the time. Cherub, be dumb. The mail, the mailbox, the school bus, the. He asks me to read the mail, not birds, mail. If you don't read this, you will turn into birds. And I read it to him the best I can. The end, a feather, two feathers, the end. Mother, repeat after me. Cherubi D, cherubi dum. We read together before bedtime. Thank you.
Thank you to Monica, Anaïs, Chen, and Rajiv for reading here today. Please be sure to buy a book in the back, get them signed, say hi to the writers, grab a glass of wine, and let's give another round of applause for all our readers.